Record shows you are Glenn Hammer. You're here to testify on behalf of Texas Association of Business, and you're for the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Glenn Hammer. I'm President and CEO of the Texas Association of Business. We're the Texas State Chamber, and we're the state affiliate for the National Association of Manufacturers as well. And I'm testifying today in strong support of HB 4660, a bill that clarifies jurisdiction over space flight activities and strengthens coordination protocols for temporary beach closures related to space operations. It's important just to point out that the FAA's closure rules of 500 beach closure hours per year would remain in effect. Texas is a national leader in the commercial space sector, home to spaceports, research hubs, and aerospace manufacturing that fuels both economic development and national innovation. With that leadership comes a need for clear, consistent policies that support public safety, state and federal compliance, and continued investment in this critical infrastructure. HB 4660 affirms that jurisdiction over spaceflight activities rests with the federal government and the state of Texas, while ensuring local governments remain engaged in decisions that directly affect their communities. By establishing procedures for notice and coordination of beach closures, the bill balances public access rights with the operational requirements of space launches, many of which are governed, as I mentioned, by strict FAA safety protocols and reviews. This is an industry that could reach $1.8 trillion, according to McKinsey, by 2035. Texas already has a huge lead because of fantastic companies like SpaceX, and we would strongly urge this committee to support HB 4660. It's a big bill for the state of Texas's future economic supremacy. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, are questions to this one? Oh, Mr. Anchia has one.
Thank you, Glenn, for testifying. I'll just preface my comments by saying I'm unpersuaded by folks who come up and say that there's a problem with a company just because of who the founder is, regardless of how we feel about that person or not. Those arguments are much less important to me than who gets to make the call on beach closures, right? For the same reasons that Chairman Raymond pointed out, that beach closures are necessary to carry out this activity to keep people safe. Who gets to make the call? In your comments, you said that this bill clarifies something. What is it clarifying?
Well, Representative, I believe that it clarifies that it basically, the FAA and the state will be the leads when it comes to making these decisions.
But is that a clarification or is that a change? Because currently the county commissioner's court has the jurisdiction to do it.
It's fair to say, if you want to, I'm not going to argue if you want to say that that's a change. I think that's a fair thing.
So it is a change. It's not a clarification. A clarification would be if there was some ambiguity in the existing ability to close the beach, and then suddenly this bill said, no, there's no ambiguity. It is this entity. But the way I read the bill is that currently the county commissioner's court has the ability to do beach closures for launches, and then suddenly this bill changes that to a responsibility that lies mainly with this new municipality that is to be formed, but still for some dates and some times allows the commissioner's court to make that change, so to make the determination. Do you think that's a fair reading of the bill?
I'm not going to argue with your reading of the bill.
Sorry. Do you think that's a fair beat? I know you're not going to argue with it, but do you think that's a fair reading of it?
I think underneath it, the FAA's rules that 500 hours are the cap for the beach closures still remain. So what I would say—
That's not responsive to my question. Right. Yeah. You said that in your
comments. It will allow for a more efficient— I mean, the bottom line is this. We want to have, whether it's SpaceX or any of these other terrific companies that are popping up in Texas, we've been pretty consistent, whether it's the space industry or any other industry. We want to make sure that the regulations are as streamlined as possible so that these companies can operate effectively and efficiently. And I would just say for a $1.8 trillion industry that employs overall probably about 150,000 Texans and could employ many more over the course of the next several decades, we're going to support efforts that make it easier for these companies to operate. And I appreciate your initial comments. To me, this shouldn't be a particularly politicized issue. This would just allow for a more efficient operation for a mission that probably most of us share, and that's at some point not just a return to the moon, but to go to Mars. And wouldn't it be wonderful for Texas to be the gateway to Mars and to be the state that that proudly leads that effort?
Let's go back to my question. Is it a fair reading of the bill to say we are changing jurisdiction exclusively from the Commissioner's Court to now a shared jurisdiction between this future municipality and the Commissioner's Court? Is that correct?
I think that's fair.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman.
Why is the closure regime that is proposed in this bill more efficient? You said, and your entire testimony was predicated on efficiency, right? And you said all these great things will happen because of efficiency in decision-making. Fair?
Well, I think that
Didn't you just use
yes.
the word efficiency 10 times? And the fact that this bill
Okay.
passes would make
Yeah,
something more efficient.
This will make it easier for the state to dominate in the space field.
Okay.
That's pretty obvious. That's why you have the space
Why is
industry.
it obvious? Why is it
obvious?
obvious that the County Commissioners Court of Cameron County does a less efficient job of closing the beaches than this future municipality? Why is it obvious?
Well, I believe that the fact that that the future municipality will largely consist of people that are engaged in this industry and understand the importance of this industry will lead to
Does Cameron County not understand the importance of this
I'm
industry?
sure Cameron County does, and I know that there's obviously a lot of people in Cameron County who support this. So this is about, in our view, a more effective way to advance the space industry in the state of Texas. And I would agree if you want to change the word clarify to change, that's probably a fair assessment and critique of how I presented it. But I would say that clarification, there is a fairness to that word, because underneath it, nothing is going to change in terms of federal law that limits the beach closures to 500 hours. That's going to remain.
You are simply
in
expressing a
effect.
bias that a company-run municipality will be more efficient than the existing regime under the Cameron County Commissioners Court. It is what I'm hearing from you. You say it's more efficient and more effective.
What I'm saying is that this will be a positive change in terms of making Texas the center for space activity and exploration and the gateway to Mars. I believe that this is a good bill. And again, underneath it, the 500-hour beach closure still remains. And this will be a positive change in Texas law to encourage an industry that could reach 1.8 trillion and employ hundreds of thousands of Texans by 2035. Regardless of what the political party of those Texans are, I believe it will be a great benefit. And a great benefit to other companies like Firefly and all these other great companies that are doing such inspirational things for all Texans and really all Americans.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So would y'all then be in support of the state maintaining control of Boca Chica Park as opposed to transferring it if this bill were to pass? That's a simple yes or no question.
I can't answer it because we haven't taken a position on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond.
Thank you, Chairman.
Hi.
I think I took Mr. Hammer's testimony a little different than my friend, Mr. Achio here, because, you know, at the end of the day, what I was hearing you say is that really we at the state level, not the county commissioners court, not the cities, all that, we're the ones that decide. And so we're deciding, if this legislation moves, then we're making a decision how this beach is going to be handled, how the operation and so forth. That's how I took it when you said that, you know, kind of we're sending a message that we decide, and, you know, that's how I took it. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we decide at the state level what the cities and the counties can do, right?
Representative, yes, and when you think about it, you know, the state has, in a bipartisan way, put 150 million or so into our Space Commission. I mean, the state has obviously made it a major mission correctly to advance the space industry in the state of Texas.
The other thing I would say is, I guess I speak from my experience representing Laredo, which is the busiest port in the country, right?
We want to keep it that way, yes.
Well, I'd like to keep it that way, yes, and it probably will be. And
Yeah.
but I can tell you that the city of Laredo manages all the ports. We own, I'm sorry, all the bridges. We own all the bridges. We manage the operation of the county. Has little, if any, impact or influence on what's being done at the bridges, right? And so, I would say that in my case, that the city certainly does a better job and would likely continue to do a better job, in part just because they have the experience. They know it. They know the business, right? And so I guess part of where you'd be coming from here is that if the city is established, however it got there, they followed the law, they followed the rules, they got established. And they're just more likely, maybe I'll just put it that way, based on my experience in Laredo, they're just more likely to have a better idea, you know, what's going on with the operations and what's necessary and what's safe and what's not safe and so on and so forth, than the county would, right? That's, the counties, what I've seen, I mean, I've tried, and I'll tell you, Laredo, I've tried really hard to get the county more involved in some of the issues that the city has to deal with, because I have to remind the county, I have reminded the county, rather, that most of the tax base that they have comes from people who live in the city. But that has fallen on deaf ears, right? And so the county's like, hey, that's the city, that's not us, man, that's the city, that's not us. At least that's what's happening in my part of the world. So, you know, if we'll know by May the 3rd if there's going to be a city there, right? And I think that should impact and influence whether or not this legislation passes.
Very thoughtful comments. Thank you, Mr. Raymond.
All right. Members, other questions of this witness? Seeing none, I think it's time for you to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for being here.